So, you want to own a gaming cafe. Buy a room full of high-end PCs, charge people by the hour to sit down and play, and let the money roll in from people who can't afford or don't want that setup at home. It sounds simple. Rent a space, plug in some machines, and you're basically renting out time on hardware you already own. That is the dream. It is not entirely wrong. The problem is what it actually costs to keep those seats full, and why this exact business is exploding in one country, quietly transforming in another, and has almost completely disappeared in a third. Before anyone walks through the door, you need the hardware. A single high-end gaming PC, the kind serious players expect, typically costs between $1,500 and $2,500 per station. A modest setup with 15 to 20 machines already puts you at $30,000 to $50,000 in equipment alone, before rent, before furniture, before a single monitor. Add build-out costs. Electrical wiring capable of running dozens of power-hungry machines at once, networking infrastructure, soundproofing, custom desks, and gaming chairs. And a serious operation can run anywhere from $50,000 for a lean setup to well over $500,000 for a full-scale gaming lounge. The global gaming cafe market itself is valued around $4.3 billion in 2025, and it's projected to nearly double to $7.8 billion by 2032. This is not a shrinking niche. It's a business quietly growing in the background of the gaming industry. Once the doors are open, the model looks deceptively simple, charged by the hour, usually somewhere between $5 and $10 depending on the market and the hardware tier. But here's the trap. A 20-station cafe with $15,000 in monthly operating costs needs roughly a third of its seats filled all day, every day, just to break even. Empty chairs don't just mean lost revenue. The electricity, the rent, and the staff are being paid whether anyone's sitting there or not. A gaming cafe's real profit often isn't the hourly rate at all. It's everything sold around it. Energy drinks, snacks, tournament entry fees, membership tiers, and VIP zones with premium hardware that command a much higher hourly rate. In South Korea, some of the most successful locations have essentially become restaurants that happen to have gaming PCs, generating as much revenue from food as from screen time. Here's what makes this business genuinely brutal. Gaming PCs run hot, and they run constantly, often 12 to 16 hours a day. Electricity bills scale with usage in a way a normal office or cafe never has to deal with, and the hardware itself ages fast. A top-tier graphics card considered cutting-edge today is mid-tier in 2 years, which means every few years, the entire equipment investment needs to be repeated just to stay competitive. None of this changes based on how busy a Tuesday afternoon is. The lease is due either way. In China, this business isn't declining. It's booming and evolving into something almost unrecognizable from the old internet cafe stereotype. In 2025, the number of internet cafes in China grew by nearly 13% year over year, reaching more than 122,000 locations nationwide, with total industry revenue surpassing $14.8 billion. Operators have been adding buffets, hot springs, and even attached hotel accommodations, turning a simple gaming room into something closer to a resort experience. The customer isn't just paying for a seat anymore, they're paying for an atmosphere. South Korea tells a more complicated story. The raw number of PC bangs has nearly halved over the last several years, dropping from over 10,500 locations to roughly 7,300. On paper, that looks like decline, but the survivors are getting bigger and more premium, not smaller. The average number of PCs per location has actually risen, and operators are building VIP zones with top-tier graphics cards and PC torrents that grill food tableside next to the gaming stations. Total usage still reached 780 million hours in 2025. This isn't a dying industry, it's a shrinking number of players getting far better at extracting value from each customer. The United States tells the opposite story, and it's a genuine collapse rather than a consolidation. As home broadband became universal and a capable gaming PC became something most enthusiasts simply own themselves, the core reason to leave the house access to hardware you don't have, quietly disappeared for most people. What remains in the US market today is a much smaller footprint of dedicated esports lounges and tournament venues, competing on community and events rather than simply renting out a seat and a keyboard. Same business model. 3 completely different outcomes. The common thread among the winners is that neither China nor Korea's survivors are competing on hourly rate anymore. They've turned the venue itself into the product. Atmosphere, food, community, hardware you genuinely cannot access anywhere else. The US locations that still exist are doing exactly the same thing. The ones that tried to compete purely on cheap hourly PC access are the ones that are gone. So, if you do decide to open a gaming cafe, understand what you're actually signing up for. You are not renting out computer time. You are competing directly against the fact that most of your potential customers already own a decent PC at home. The only way this business survives is by selling something a bedroom setup can't replicate. The room, the crowd, the food, the hardware nobody can afford themselves. Sell the hour and you'll lose to the couch. Sell the experience and you might just have a business that lasts.